I couldn't be more excited to have Don Clu with us today. Don is a seasoned revenue executive who has led multiple global sales teams for Fortune 1000 companies, as well as high growth PE-backed scale ups. He now is a high performance sales coach helping sales teams from venture backed startups scale rapidly by laying the foundation for sales strategy and aligning their strategy to go to market plans and processes. But most importantly, Don is a close friend of mine. I met Don following the acquisition of Emailage by LexisNexis. I was running RevOps at Emailage and Don was leading the go-to-market integration of Emailage and Lexis. Since then, we've partnered on a number of projects and I'm super excited to get his insights on this topic of aligning sales and marketing teams. Don, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure, Anthony. You're one of my favorite people that I've had the pleasure of working with throughout my career, and so it's an honor to be on with you today.
Much appreciated. Likewise. I think we can maybe jump right into it, and I think we could probably lead with the assumption that most people who are working in revenue teams, if they're working in sales or marketing, they've experienced the conflict between sales and marketing teams. So I'm sure across your career it's happened, but I'd love your perspective on what you've seen and maybe a couple examples of where that's happened.
Sure. Yeah, certainly, Anthony. There's probably a very long history of kind of the sales and marketing not working together effectively, not necessarily being aligned. And that's something I've experienced, over the course of my career. And I think a lot of it just goes back to kind of the old organizational approaches of each department being in their lane and doing their thing and kind of being siloed. And, I don't see that so much now in business today, but there are still challenges to overcome around that. And so I think, that kind of siloed nature of sales versus marketing is kind of where a lot of things have started from. And so I think, from there, it's really about, the other challenge that I've seen is those organizations not having shared objectives. So they haven't come together to figure out how they work together most effectively, how they leverage the expertise and knowledge that each group has and the things that each group hopes to accomplish in shared objectives. So I think those are kind of the two things that I've seen predominantly that have created misalignment between sales and marketing. But certainly there's lots of ways to overcome that. And I like to think that I've been a part of making that happen in the organizations that I've been a part of. I've fortunately been able to work with some really outstanding folks in marketing in my career. And so that has made the job a lot easier because they had the same desire that I did to come together and work effectively to achieve our shared goals.
Yeah, I think, and I can be a testament to that. I think any of the organizations I've worked in with you, there had seemed to have been a really strong alignment between the sales and marketing teams. And you mentioned something that I think is really important and I think can tend to be maybe the cornerstone of this conflict, and that's the shared objectives. What type of objectives have you seen assigned to these two teams that can tend to drive misalignment? And what are ways you can find shared objectives that can help make that alignment happen?
Well, certainly, each group has their own drivers. So for sales, it's revenue, and sales has their mindset about how to accomplish that and what they need from marketing to help them accomplish that. That may not be all that informed from the marketing perspective. Hasn't been my expertise in the past. Hasn't been the expertise of a lot of the people that I've had on my sales team through the years. And likewise, you have the marketing folks with the things that they know they need to accomplish. They want to deliver leads to to the business, but without really understanding what sales is trying to accomplish and how they see that happening and factoring that in and developing plans for that, then again, we're just both going down separate, swim lanes at that point, and we're never going to have the kind of results that we ultimately want unless we do spend that time to create those shared objectives.
Yeah, and I feel like I've seen a lot of times where maybe a marketing team has an objective of driving leads, and maybe that might not have a very clear definition of what a lead is. So it may be something as simple as somebody filling out a contact us form on the website, and we're going to count that as a lead. And then when it trickles down to the sales team, they may be saying, hey, this isn't really a good qualified lead for us to drive it into an opportunity. Have you seen any way, because I feel like sometimes the marketing teams, they're there to drive that type of activity, and the activities that they do will drive more leads to the website or more people at an event. What is a good shared objective that sales can have with marketing where they're really looking at the same scoreboard and they're looking at the same metrics? What's an objective you've seen that has brought those teams together going after the same goal?
Well, I think it's defining. It starts with defining your target market and your target audience, and being crystal clear on that, and then designing together the best approaches to get to those prospects. And because if you're looking at enterprise customers, then the way you go after them is going to be different than going after a mid-market customer or an SMB customer. So sales knows the characteristics, and marketing knows what are the mechanisms that we can use to reach them. So it's coming together and tailoring then the objective to specifically optimize the outreach to that target market and target audience within the target market.
So start with ICP. Start with what that ideal customer profile is. Agree on it, align on it. That way marketing knows, hey, if we're going after enterprise and I'm bringing you a bunch of small businesses, I know why you wouldn't be happy about that high volume of leads.
Right. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and outside of objectives, so getting people aligned on the same goals, what else do you see tends to drive alignment or misalignment between these two teams?
Well, I think once you've dedicated the time to build out those shared objectives, and it takes some real intense work together to really leverage the shared expertise there and refine what you're going to do. But once you do that, I think the important thing is how you measure that and monitor that, and then come back together to adjust based on what you're seeing. So you've got to have the ability to identify how your approaches are performing quickly and easily, so that then you can have the conversations to say, okay, we're doing well in this area, we're not in this area. How do we adjust and attack that again? So it's not just a one and done. Hey, we put the objectives together and now everything's going to work just great. So you've got to have the metrics, and you've got to have a commitment to coming together regularly to really analyze that and make changes on the fly. And that's frankly one of the things that I've enjoyed about working with you and your organization, is that that was something you brought to the table in the way of expertise when Email Edge became a part of LexisNexis, and That's something I've leveraged with your help in projects since then. So that's really, I think, a key way that the groups can stay aligned, not just, set it up initially, but consistently be aligned and working together to make the modifications to supercharge the effort.
Yeah, I do think the tooling is really important. I use a metaphor. It's like if you're playing a basketball game and then one of the teams is measuring touchdowns. So if you don't have a scoreboard aligned between the two teams that they can both look at and know, I know exactly how many points have been scored, I know who's winning, I know who's losing, and I can see in real time what's happening. If you don't have that, it immediately becomes this, argumentative, confrontational environment between marketing's not doing enough, sales isn't closing the leads we send them, and if you can't see the data, especially at a leadership level, I mean, you've been in organizations where you're managing an org that's over 500 people. So you can't go around and ask the reps how they're doing. You need to be able to see it in system.
Sure, absolutely. And Anthony, a really fundamental thing that I think is important to maintain alignment is thinking about your collective work as a go-to-market team and talking about it as a go-to-market team, and not, kind of furthering the silo effect by talking about sales and marketing, but we are a go-to-market team, and recognizing across those two groups the performance and the impact that each is having. And I had a really great marketing leader. In fact, you probably know her, Jennifer Lemon. One of the things that she really helped me think about often was that, it was important for me as a sales leader to not just focus on recognizing the performance of the sales team, which is the natural inclination of sales leaders. You want to support your team and build them up and recognize their performance, but they don't do it alone. They do it with the help of so many people in an organization, and marketing being a key contributor to that. So she really helped me get better discipline myself about recognizing her team and the contributions they made. And I think it's a small thing, but it's important. It's important for people to feel invested in that collective effort and that collaboration. So, that's a really simple thing for people to implement that can have a really big difference in how people view their role and the part they play in taking, the messaging to the market.
Absolutely. And I think when it's coming down from the top, it's going to trickle down to the whole team. So if you're in meetings complaining about how marketing is doing, or the head of marketing is complaining about how the reps aren't grateful for the leads and they don't know how to close them, then that's going to go down to the teams and then drive this misalignment at the IC, individual contributor level too. Speaking of, I think it's an interesting topic. Sometimes it might be a little sensitive, but I wish we could solve all of this with the right reporting and commission and goal structures. I tend to think there are some people that just have a tough time aligning. And there are some maybe personality types, or they come from certain experiences where you can have all the infrastructure in place, but this person is just not going to create that culture or create that environment. How, in your career, how would you say, or what would you look for to see if a person would be someone who would drive alignment versus somebody who might be adversarial in either role, head of marketing or head of sales?
Yeah. Well, I think it's kind of for me, it's the collaboration gene. Don't know that it's gene, but
do you need to do like a 23andMe type of test to figure it out?
Yeah, maybe we should check to see if that's available. They tell you about it.
Yeah, this podcast brought to you by 23andMe. Just kidding.
There we go. Yeah, so I think trying to identify from the work that they've done previously, do they tend to be a little bit more of a kind of a lone wolf in the way they do their work, or do they show real signs of having been collaborative and working across groups to drive initiatives and drive change? And you can see it in project work they do a lot of times, special project work that they do, or things that they've helped implement that were cross-functional and very collaborative. So I think for me, and this applies to so many things beyond just the sales and marketing collaboration, but collaboration has got to be, in the top 3 characteristics of, strong sales leaders, strong marketing leaders, but really, in my mind, strong salespeople as well. So, I just think that goes so far in helping drive the business to levels that you wouldn't be able to reach, without having that.
Is there a good way, because sometimes I feel like it may be easy to spot once somebody's in seat, and then you may know if you need to make a leadership change or transition. Do you have a good way when you've been recruiting and finding executive leaders? What's a good way to weed that out during that interview or selection process, or before they come into the organization? Do you have any good interview questions or things that you can do to help suss it out beforehand?
Yeah, I think just trying to identify the work that they've done that goes beyond just the lines of their role and department. So digging into, the kinds of work that they've done that go beyond, if they're a marketing person, go beyond marketing, and how they contributed to something that was bigger than just their individual work. And honestly, if people aren't talking about collaboration when they talk about themselves, then that to me is just a really big red flag, because if they're totally me focused, then that's a pretty good indicator that when it comes to really working effectively together, they may not have, the right skills. So just a little, quick indicator that might cause you to want to dig into it even more to really understand, was there real work done there to collaborate with other groups, or is it more just kind of lip service to, being a good colleague and good work partner?
Yeah, so I think what you said is huge. If you hear a lot of me talking themselves up, then like you said, big red flag. Like, might not be somebody who sees the value in creating a team and creating a collaborative, aligned environment. Yeah, and I just think if you can make sure that you can catch that at the beginning, it's so important, because by the time they come in, the damage can be done. A couple months of a leader like that can trickle down to the whole team, can misalign the leadership team. It can really drive a lot of change really quickly.
Absolutely.
Well, you don't have to put names, and you don't have to say companies or anything, but I'm curious if you could maybe just build us a straw man of this scenario. What's the worst you've seen across your career? What is this is like the dumpster fire version of sales and marketing alignment in Don's career? Just so maybe those listening can feel better about the situation that they're in right now.
Yeah, so I guess I would think back to an organization that I came into where there was very much kind of the silo approach. Sales was off doing their thing, marketing was off doing their thing. And in this particular case, the marketing, there was no definition to what a qualified lead was. And so every touch point, just a website visit, marketing considered that a marketing qualified lead and was pushing data over to the sales team, and the sales team was going, well, what's this and what do we know about this? So I think, not having the clear definitions that we talked about in that particular case, there was just nothing there that could help you understand who the company was, what their interest was, how strong it was. It was just everything got lobbed over, and the sales team, in some ways they were kind of overwhelmed with stuff coming at them, and it was not efficient at all for them to do the follow-up when so many things weren't really in a ready state to really have the conversation. So I think that was the worst, because without some framework for how you define a lead and what the sequence is that happens when you first get that touch point through to actually having it ready for a salesperson to talk to, without that, then it is a bit of a dumpster fire at that point.
Yeah, for all they know, they could be sending malicious bot attacks over as leads, and the sales team is communicating with potential criminals. But how did that happen? I mean, how did you end up with leaders on both sides where that became ingrained with how they were operating?
I think it was people. I think it was just people having good intent without having a real understanding of the basic tenets of what they needed to be doing. They from a marketing perspective, they saw, they were pushing a lot of things to the sales team, and they thought that was good, but the definition of good had not been established and was not well informed. So it just created, really more of a nightmare situation. And I think, on the other side, sales didn't know enough to know what to ask for and how to set that up themselves. So there was just a gap in expertise around what needed to happen. And, again, no ill intent, but just not the right level of understanding and experience to put that together in a really, cohesive approach.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it's interesting too to highlight, no ill intent. They just didn't have the frameworks and processes to lay the foundation to align. And sometimes we may frame it as you have power-hungry leaders looking to find the credit for everything that's going on, but sometimes it's people who just don't know any better.
Right, exactly, and that was the case here.
Well, what should we do about it? I mean, if people who are listening, if they feel like they might be in an environment or a culture where the teams aren't aligned very well, what are a couple practical things that people can do or teams can do to help start driving towards that alignment?
Yeah, I think you've got to find a way to bring the groups together, or at least starting with the leaders, bringing them together and acknowledging that good work has been done, but there is so much more that we could be doing. And the most effective way to do that is to work together in concert. And I think a lot of it is getting out on the table. People bring their experiences and other situations they've been in, and that's their view of how things should operate or how things don't operate well. So they bring that with them to the table. So just getting that out there and kind of understanding some of the perceptions that people have, and not being afraid to have the difficult discussions around how we overcome those things, you know. And so I think that's the starting point. You have to get people past some of those misperceptions that they may have had, or over some of those hurdles from their prior experience, or maybe even their current experience. But you have to get those things out on the table and kind of get past that to get everybody thinking about how we work together effectively. And then again, acknowledging that each group has things they need to accomplish, and they need to show, results. But how do we do that together in a way that, it's gonna produce for the greater organization, but still bring the right recognition to the work that has been done by each group individually as well.
Yeah, and I think having that culture of, I'm a big good to great guy, if you will. I probably read the book 6 or 7 times now, and I think the confronting brutal facts chapter of that book is really resonating right now, because a lot of people are afraid to have those type of conversations, and feel like maybe it puts their career at risk. But if you don't, and if you avoid it, you're at a greater risk if you don't try to have that conversation.
Yeah, totally agree.
Well, I think you're in an interesting role now, working with SalesStar and helping venture-backed startups, sales teams, sales leaders really lay down this foundation from a strategic and enablement point of view. How do you approach this in the work that you do every day, and how's the type of work you do help these teams get aligned?
Yeah, so we are really all about sales transformation for our clients, and so we believe very strongly that it starts with building that strong foundation. And so, that it's not there for a lot of different reasons. Organizations are moving fast, and they just haven't taken the time to put the pieces in place, to think through them. There may be a lack of experience or expertise, just like we were talking about that situation of not having the right marketing expertise in that organization. So, there's a lot of reasons that an organization finds themselves in a position where they don't have all of those foundational pieces in place, and they're in most cases they're not able to consistently deliver the revenue that they need to as a result of that. So that's where we focus. And one of the big things we focus on is just clarity. So one of my very favorite people in the world that you've probably seen on LinkedIn is Amy Bolas. And
oh, sure. Yeah, Amy's great.
One of her big things is clarity in so many different things. And she always references getting out the Windex bottle and let's get the crystal clear. So the way that we do that at SalesStar is we start with an intensive 2-day workshop, sales team, sales leaders, executives in some cases, where we bring everyone together and we collaborate together to get very clear on sales strategy. Again, answering the questions that we referenced earlier: who is your target market? Who are the specific people, specific roles within those organizations that we need to be talking to? What is the messaging that we're going to deliver about how we help address the challenges that they face, and the results that we've shown for other clients like them. And then we dive in and really get very clear on their sales process, very milestone centric, with all of the things that need to happen at each step along the way in order for opportunities to advance. So we we build out this very clear foundation. So tying it back to the whole sales and marketing alignment, if you just have just the sales team there and the sales leaders, and they're doing that work from their vantage point, then you're gonna have a lack of alignment, because you need to have the marketing folks in the room contributing their vantage point on that. So we always try to pull in marketing, any customer facing roles that might not be directly part of sales, like if there's SDRs that report into marketing, for instance. So we try to bring all those people in, and because we want all of them a part of building that foundation and understanding exactly what we're going after, how we're going to go after it, what the steps are to take a deal from prospect to close. And so that's how we pull everyone together to make sure that as we're building that out with our clients, that we've got that alignment right out of the gate.
I think that's so important to have the teams actually partake in building it. I think it drives so much more commitment across when they feel like they've been involved.
Yeah. And when they're a part of building it, then they have that ownership, and they're much less likely to be taking pot shots at people about the work that they're doing if they were a part of designing how the work gets done. Our founder likes to say, people who build the plan don't fight the plan.
Right. That's smart.
Yeah, so that's kind of the way we look at it. We want to have everybody engaged in that and feeling that ownership in it.
I think that's key. And such a good way. It's such a great way, especially the process that you take people through with SalesStar, kicking that off that way right at the beginning to set the tone. Hey, one team, one go-to-market function. We're all here for the same reason. We want our organizations to grow, flourish, create opportunities for everybody here. And, we're not doing anybody a favor if we're fighting each other.
Yeah, and then, really the other thing that I feel like sets us apart is after we build that out, the thing that we don't just come in and spend 2 days with them and build that out and say, okay, go get it, hope
Right.
you do well.
Yeah, good luck.
We are there with them, in weekly or bi-weekly coaching sessions, both with their sales team and their sales leaders, because in many cases we're putting in some new things into play for them, some new approaches to how they do their work, and establishing KPIs that maybe they haven't had before. So we're there with them and helping them and bouncing ideas off of them as they test out some of these new things. And so that's a big part of what we do to help really embed the changes that we work on in that 2-day workshop.
I love it. So many companies could benefit so much from going through the type of work that you go through. And I know you have a wealth of experience and knowledge that any team would be really fortunate to have. Don, this has been amazing. I really, really appreciate you sharing your insights on this topic. It's a big topic for a lot of teams. It's something we encounter in the work that we do all the time. And we definitely take it from a data and tooling perspective, but also hearing your insights on the culture, finding the right people, and driving alignment is super important. Don, what's the best way for people to find you, get in touch with you? Where can people find Don?
You can find me on LinkedIn, so Don Clu. There's not very many people out there with that name, so rather unique name. So it's my email, don.clewell@salesstar.com. So
awesome.
Love to hear from folks.
Awesome.
In a position to try to help.
Well, we'll put all of the information to reach you, Don, in the video and make sure people have access to it. But I just want to thank you again so much, and I hope to see you again. I know we'll have a couple other topics that I'm sure you would be amazing to speak on. So thank you for being with us today and looking forward to more in the future.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity, Anthony. Really appreciate it.